Hi, welcome back to the World of Wellness. We are live here in Pittsburgh at the World of Wellness Center. This is Wellness Weekend. This is when we have lots of live presentations and lots of great things going on at the Wellness Center. You can come down and get some free shakes and samples. We have lots of products on sale, especially Nutritional Frontiers. My name is Christine Genovese, and I am the Chief Growth Officer for Nutritional Frontiers in the World of Wellness. And what does that mean? That means I'm responsible for helping the companies grow. So I oversee everything from sales and marketing to education to our events that we hold, like this one, as well as all the events that we hold for healthcare providers throughout the country. And I also am really fascinated by how much vibration helps us heal. And when we talk about holistic health and healing, we're talking about frequency and we're talking about vibration. And I'm also a big proponent for biohacking, like finding ways to turn that clock back and to heal completely. So I believe that a method that I put together called the Soul Intelligence Method is that. I think it's our ultimate biohack. Because our mission at Nutritional Frontiers in the World of Wellness is to make the world healthy. And I want to do that physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. Because when we talk about healing, right, we're talking about healing the whole person. And that's one of the things that really drew me to this world of functional medicine. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Soul Intelligence Method, what it is, how it works. And I'm also going to share with you something I'm really proud of. I think I'm going to read you an excerpt from my book that is going to be published in October. I'll be doing a live book signing actually at Nutritional Frontiers professional training event here in Pittsburgh later in October. And I'm really excited to bring that to you because it really shows how you can heal the body, the mind, the soul completely. And I'm going to talk about how everybody and everything is energy, and that emotions are supposed to be energy in motion. And when emotions are no longer moving, that's when they pool and they start to cause a dissonance in the frequency or a dis-ease within the body, and you have to go see a doctor because something's not functioning right. So we're here at the World of Wellness where we have chiropractors and they make biomechanical adjustments. And I'm going to talk to you about soul intelligence, which is a bioenergetic adjustment. All right? So what if I told you I truly have the answer to all your problems? I know you'd think I was a wizard or crazy, one or the other. But I mean it, all of them. The key to a fulfilling relationship, the answer to like streamlining your relationships with your colleagues and coworkers, like the missing piece maybe in your business, improvement in wealth and prosperity, that magic elixir for like your mental, emotional, and physical health, and the ability to do that for other people. I'd probably say impossible, all right? Originally, I'm a native New Yorker, and we wouldn't believe that, and I would know better. But today we're talking about the power of soul intelligence and how that really, truly is the differentiator in life. So just for a moment, what if you could learn how to bring things up from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind and clear and release everything that's been holding you back from achieving all you want in your life after just 1 hour? That's truly what the power of soul intelligence is. So besides being the Chief Growth Officer here at the World of Wellness and Nutritional Frontiers, I developed this method, what I think is the most powerful bioenergetic method available today, called the Soul Intelligence Method. And that's exactly what my method does. It helps to discern what things are stuck in the body. But prior to all that good stuff, I served as a corporate growth and turnaround specialist in the field of higher education. And when I was there, I had to find and identify like people, processes, and technology that weren't working well together, and to streamline all those operations. In essence, what I was doing was uncovering where the energy was stuck in people, places, or things, and what processes were creating that stagnation and that needed to shift, and what technology didn't support the business. So what I try and do now is to use all of my tools. So my expertise includes the field of bioenergetics, along with all the good things that I get to do here at the World of Wellness and Nutritional Frontiers. I do have a master's degree in organizational management and a bachelor's degree in speech communication, and I'm a certified professional coach. I'm also an avid tennis player, and I get to use all of my skills on and off the tennis court. These guys are they're giving me a hard time. Ow! But how did I get the soul intelligence method in the first place, right? How did I discover it? Well, if we rewind the clock just a little bit to March of 2020, anybody recall what was going on in March of 2020? Oh, yeah, the start of COVID. And it was actually March 12th of 2020 to be exact. I was in my last corporate gig, and we were year one of a planned 3-year turnaround. And I was so excited that we had just started to make the turn. And I loved my team. I had about over 1,000 people that I managed in 3 different locations. And I had just gotten a performance bonus. Like, I was rocking it. And I got this phone call letting me know that my services were no longer needed. So you want to talk about shock of the lifetime, right? So I texted my boss, the COO at the time, and I said, I just got fired. And he said, me too. I'm like, so that's a longer story. But just to say, there is karma. Things do go around and come back to you. But that CEO wound up experiencing his own karma by he wound up losing his company. Getting removed from office and losing his company. But now let's go back to me. Okay, anyway, I'll tell you that story later. But I lost my job for the first time ever. And I had always met or exceeded expectations. I was a true overachiever in every sense of the word. At that same moment, my spouse at the time was also undergoing a biopsy for prostate cancer, and my entire world turns upside down. I was 53. I was out of work. Shocked, depressed, I was in disbelief, all in the midst of COVID when I had no chance of getting a job. So what do? Obviously, I went through all of the emotions. I was confused, I was hurt, I was lost, I was angry. I did the whole grief cycle, right? And trust me, I wallowed in all of them, okay? I did the bargaining, I was depressed, but then I finally accepted my situation. And I remember spending a lot of time using that time to go within and to meditate and to pray and to really reach down deep. And I remember the moment when it all shifted for me. I had completed this really powerful meditation, and I had tears streaming down my face. I just knew I couldn't go back into corporate America again. I knew if I did it, I'd be betraying my true nature, and it just felt soul-crushing. And I got really honest with myself. I listened to the divine, and I realized that I'd been going through the motions for a very long time. I wasn't really in touch with my true, authentic self. I'd tried all the things. I checked all the outside boxes, but I wasn't following my true path. I wasn't listening to my soul intelligence, which was screaming at me. So I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt it was time for me to come out of the spiritual closet and stand in my true power, my zone of genius. It was time to bring soul intelligence into the world. So the very next day, I sat down and I emailed my doctor, who happens to be one of our Nutritional Frontiers clients, and I shared with her that this stressed out, plane-hopping, fried adrenal person that she knew had a hidden talent. I explained how I was able to shift stuck energy, those negative emotions, destructive thoughts, repetitive unhealthy patterns, self-limiting beliefs, without them having to relive this trauma that caused it in the first place. So I offered to clear my afternoon, which she didn't know I was out of work at the time, but I'm like, I'll just put everything on hold, right? To go sit in her office until she was available to see me. And I actually started with one of her other doctors in the office who magically had 3 people cancel last minute, and that never happens, right? So that was definitely divine intervention. Yep, absolutely. So the first doctor I did a session for had such a powerful release. She was crying. She couldn't believe the accuracy of the information, like how I knew what was going on in her life. And she was so moved that she spilled like water all over the floor. So typically when you spill water, that means like your emotions are flowing. So don't get mad when you spill stuff anymore. Just be like, it's coming out. I know. She's like, yes, thank God. But at that moment that I had just done that session, my doctor peeked her head through the door and she asked how it went, took one look at her associate, and she was like, wow, I'm next. And it was game on. So that was when I started to get clients referred to me by functional medicine doctors, and it grew from there. So that's really when I opened up and I realized, letting go of that old rope, I needed to trust my intuition, tap into my own soul intelligence. Hello. And that's really what opened up for me. I took that leap of faith in spite of what it looked like on the outside. And so exactly what is, well, when I talk to my doctor too, she has these 11 pillars of health that she teaches on and that she works with clients on, patients on. And her first pillar, and this is important because I'm going to read an excerpt from my book in a little bit, is the gut. Everything begins, your health begins and ends in the gut, right? Even Socrates told us that way back when. And the reason that is that our gut, right, the stomach, has two jobs. The first job is to hold food, and the second job is to digest food. It is also where we hold our emotions and we process our emotions, or we stuff them and we don't. And this is also your stomach, okay, is what's called your third chakra, your third energy center in the body. And that is where your self-esteem resides, how you feel about yourself, how you show up in the world for other people. And that is why everything, all of the energy is centered right in our gut to begin with. So it's really fascinating when you start putting the whole picture together from, the physical body to the mental body to the emotional body and ultimately the spiritual body. So exactly what is soul intelligence, right? Well, for me, it's kind of like the why behind the what. We all know about IQ, right, and how important the brain is. And when you think about how much goes on in our brain and like what we're doing and processing and thinking and strategizing, it's frightening when you find out that's only 5% of the mind's activity. 5%, and we spend so much time here. We have a 2-foot wide energy field around the mind. Pretty impressive, okay? But what's around the heart, our emotional intelligence, okay, where that comes from, we found out in the 80s, it's not just what you say, it's how you say, right? Emotions are important. As a matter of fact, I think Neville Goddard got it right. Emotions truly are the secret, because emotions are really the magnet in the electromagnetic field, okay? So IQ begins with the electric spark. Okay, you have to have the idea. It has to start here. But what magnifies it and what brings it into you are emotions, how you feel about it, which is why The Secret back in the 80s was a good start, but you can't just say it. You have to believe it, because what you believe and what you feel is what comes into you and what manifests. So the heart, according to the Heart Math Institute, actually has a 6-foot wide energy field around it. So think about how much more powerful this pump in our body is compared to the brain, and how much time we spend here versus here. Fascinating, right? And then think about that, just with respect to COVID, 6 foot wide, you weren't allowed to get closer than 6 feet to another person. Tell me that wasn't intentional. All right. So you got IQ, you got EQ. So what's SQ? Okay, soul intelligence is being in fully alignment with who you truly are. Okay, it is making sure that you are tapping into that inner knowing, and really releasing anything that's stuck within yourself, that's keeping you back from living your true authentic self. There's a really good book that I read where, I'm going to think of it in a minute, it'll come back to me in a second, but the author talks about how we have these 4 different zones that we live in. There's the zone of incompetence. That's like me trying to fix a computer. Not going to happen. Totally not within my realm of possibilities. Then there's the zone of competence, things you're good at, but you should probably have somebody else do them. Yes, I'm good at cleaning my house, but I really like having somebody else do it for me, right? Okay. So I am competent at that, but it's not where I want to live. The next zone is your zone of excellence. And that's where we hang out for most of our lives. Like, you're really good at that. People love seeing you in that zone. Like, you're great. Like me, as a corporate turnaround specialist, I was really good at it. I made a lot of money. People liked me doing that job. But I wasn't at my zone of genius, which is what soul intelligence is all about. It's about being in full alignment with your mission, your vision, your values, your purpose, and when you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And so the mission to make the world healthy for me is that, right? And it's how do I get in alignment with that? And what are all the things that get stuck that need to shift to come up and out of my body so that I can stay in alignment with my zone of genius? So for me, that's what soul intelligence is all about. How does soul intelligence work? Okay, I'm going to rewind the clock even further. Can we remember fourth grade, anybody? Fourth grade science class? I know I'm asking a lot today, aren't I? All right, I think I think I remember fourth grade just because I was 10, and I think that's the first time I let a boy kiss me at 10. I know, right? Can you imagine? I also remember it was during the dance, Le Freak So Chic. Remember that? I knew I'd get you. We're like, oh yeah, I got that. All right. So if you think about fourth grade science class, everybody and everything is energy. We know that, right? We're protons, neutrons, electrons vibrating in this electromagnetic field. And that means that energy can get stuck in people, places, or things, and that it can get stuck in your mental, emotional, and physical body. We're all energy. We have electromagnetic fields. We operate in an electromagnetic field. Everything that manifests physically starts internally, right? It starts mentally and emotionally. And what bioenergetics is the correlation between your physical well-being and your mental and emotional well-being. Think about it. When you go to the doctor, you don't just go, okay, I've got this pain and I don't know why. The doctor's asking you, what's going on at home? What's going on in your work life? What's going on with your family? What's going on? Because it's all those factors, right? It's the stress. It's the toxicity that we're managing. It's, nutritional deficiencies, and then there's a little genetic component, right? But mostly it's stuff that's going on in our lives that gets stuck in our mental and emotional bodies. And when those emotions get stuck and they pool, they cause dysfunction in the body. So thinking about that, emotions like fear and jealousy and greed vibrate at a very low level, okay? And emotions like love and peace and joy are at a much higher vibration. It's one of the reasons why our states of consciousness, like you can actually measure them, okay? They equate to waves of frequency, like alpha, beta, theta, and delta. And you can actually measure these states. Actually, Dr. David Hawkins did that in his book, Power versus Force. And I have an expanded version of that because when I start a soul intelligence session, I want to see where somebody is in the beginning of the session and then where they are at the end of the session. So when you think about, I started to say IQ, we only use 5% of our brain. So what's the rest of the story? 95% is subconscious. Now, I'm a big fan of the subconscious mind because we would stop breathing when we're sleeping if it didn't do its job, right? So there is a place. But that means all of our negative energy, our toxic emotions, the destructive thoughts, those repetitive caustic patterns, our self-limiting beliefs, they all reside in our subconscious mind, and they typically loop and cycle over and over again. And our subconscious mind is really in the driver's seat, and it's super powerful, and it only pays attention to the thoughts around those feelings. So when you believe you deserve something, you get it, positive or negative. That's how the quantum field works. So how are you supposed to know how to shift it if you don't even know what's stuck in there? Okay? Well, that's where soul intelligence comes in. My method actually helps to shift that stuck energy out of your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual bodies. And it brings some of what's stuck in that subconscious mind up to your conscious mind's awareness so you can acknowledge it and release it. So it clears away these old beliefs that are no longer serving you. Ditch all those patterns that aren't supporting you and those feelings that you have been suppressing so that you can go about becoming aligned with your true calling or your mission or your vision or your values and your purpose, your why. And so it's pretty incredible. So I am going to touch on quantum physics for a sec, but I'm not going to go super deep. But basically, not only looking at the energy fields and, around your brain and your heart, But if I go a little bit deeper into the energy science, like let's say we'll skip ahead, first year college biology, to talk about how and why energy gets stuck. The science side of this is our bodies are protein-making machines. Okay, so every cell in your body, except for red blood cells, make proteins. And in order for a cell to make a protein, it either has to be stimulated or regulated. So spark it and regulate it, control it. And our genes are basically a library of potentials, and the latest research in the field of genetics says that genes don't create disease, right? It's the environment that signals the gene that begins to create it. And that's why when we talk about all the things we actually can control, right, with our own health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, it all comes back to toxicity. So when we talk about toxicity, I'm not just talking about the environment and the kind of detergent you use on your clothes, or the lotions that we're using on our bodies. I'm also talking about what programs do you watch? What news do you pay attention to? Who do you spend the most time around? Are they motivating, happy, inspiring people, right? All of that affects you, all of it. Anyway, 99% we can control our lifestyle, our behavior, and the choices we make. And that's the best thing about functional medicine. We have way more control than we were led to believe. But if you want to talk about creating a healthier lifestyle, obviously you got to get some physical support. So I'm so excited that you guys are here at the World of Wellness today to get all that goodness to help shift things up and out. But if we talk about environment, like I said, I'm not just talking about our outer environment, our homes, I'm talking about our inner environment. And the correlation between our thoughts, emotions, and our physical body. So our inner environment is affected by our emotional state, which is really the key factor that signals the genes to either upregulate for good or downregulate. And the environment that signals the gene is that end product of an experience that is called emotion, energy in motion. So when someone has an emotionally charged experience, it sends this chemical emotional signal to the body. And that chemical emotional signal begins to change that person's state of being. So their body and their brain are now effectively operating in the past because of that traumatic event. It changed them biologically. And what happens to most people is they create beliefs from their past experiences. For example, any kind of like memorable trauma, a car accident, or physical abuse. Or a repetitive pattern from childhood. Perhaps you were told as a kid you were never good enough, so as an adult you became an overachiever, right? Okay. Sound like anybody you know? I know, buddy. I know. There's several of us in this room that resemble that remark. You're like, to heck with him, out. I'm out, tapping out. But if you think about it, we are our thoughts neurologically and our feelings chemically. So if you can embrace that biology of those past experiences, that will become your state of being, because how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, right? When you physically feel good, mentally and emotionally, you're usually doing well. When you don't feel good, mentally and emotionally, you're usually not doing so hot, right? But here's where it gets really interesting in terms of the science. If people are living outside the routine of this predictable future, or the memories associated with those emotions of those past experiences, like you can't think, or even to a greater degree, how you feel about those events, the routine is what influences the gene expression, okay? Because there's no new information coming in. The repetitive negative thoughts in their thinking creates those self-limiting beliefs. The toxic emotions that you feel create those repetitive patterns. And so you're constantly sending the same information to your genes over and over again. And we know the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So the genes in your body need a pattern disruptor. Otherwise, you're going to get the same old, same old. And that is actually one of the reasons why depression, in particular, is one of the biggest diseases in not only in our country, but around the world. Right? Because we're continually sending the same signal over and over again. And if you think about it, once the gene's been signaled, the person's living out of, balance or homeostasis, that imbalance becomes their new normal. And so the internal environment is sending the body specific signals to the cells. And the cells are getting the same instructions. The same instructions begin to produce the same proteins. The person begins to experience ill health or dis-ease within the body or a dissonance in the frequency. And now they have to go see a healthcare professional or come to the wellness center. This is where chronic illness comes from. That's repetitive conditions, or like you fix one thing and then another thing goes wrong, right? It is because we're not changing that internal environment. So a little more quantum here, but your biology literally changes, or the past no longer exists when you can rewrite this new pattern or this new information, right? And so the emotional state is what changes your brain. And energy influencing matter is quantum physics, okay? It is a quantum phenomena. And we all have the power to be quantum healers, and soul intelligence actually operates on this bioenergetic level. It is a quantum form of healing. As a matter of fact, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a neuroscientist who I follow and love, and he did a bunch of research on epigenetic research and how this actually happens in the body. So he took people with type 2 diabetes, and they exposed them to a very funny 1-hour comedy show, and they laughed. And the experiment measured the before and after to see whether or not their genes upregulated. The results showed 20 of the genes upregulated just by changing their mood. So by changing their internal state, they were actually able to instruct the genes to do something new and make new healthy proteins. So with diabetes, like amazing, right? When I look up the root cause of all dis-ease within the body, there is always an emotion that's underneath it. There is always an emotional component. And diabetes in particular is about not experiencing the sweetness of life, like feeling bitter. So the fact that he took them to a comedy club and got them to laugh, right, that's getting them up and out of that state and puts them in that state of joy. And I can tell you, I just did that last night at Sebastian Maniscalco. He was here in Pittsburgh, and oh my gosh, he was hilarious. I laughed for like 90 minutes straight. It's like the best medicine ever. You want to change your mood? That's one of my favorite things to do is to laugh. There's also another study that Joe Dispenza shared that they did a study at UCLA, and they showed that men with prostate cancer were able to upregulate new genes for health and downregulate those genes for disease by meditating daily for 60 days. So not only that, but they lengthened their telomeres on their DNA and increased their longevity, which means they rewound the clock, right? Their biological age versus their chronological age. So when you heal your genes, right, that create dis-ease or imbalance, it proves that we're our own genetic engineers and not our genes. So the way you can change and affect your internal state, or that of your family or your friends or your clients, your patients, is with soul intelligence. Obviously, when you're physically healthy, you're able to cope with stress and emotions much better. When you're emotionally healthy, your bodies are able to function better. Nutrition, exercise, and mindset all help, but bioenergetics to me is truly the game changer. It really gets to the root cause of chronic illness, what's stuck, what's not in motion. And as I've shared, emotion is supposed to be energy in motion. When it's not, that's when the trouble starts. So this concept has been around since the 1950s. Bioenergetic analysis was developed by Dr. Alexander Lowen, who was an MD. And they believed that physical ailments were rooted in the unconscious psychic conflict, and really expanded that idea to include that chronic stress could also lead to mental health issues. So bioenergetic therapies like the soul intelligence method help people release physical, emotional, mental tension that is the root cause of all problems. And it's one of the things that I am most passionate about. And I've had direct experience. I have so many case studies of different clients that I've worked with. And I want to share a little excerpt of my book to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to jump to a couple of the case studies. I'm going to put my glasses on, okay? Now I look really smart. All right. If I move down here, this is in my drafts, so I have to kind of find my right spot here. So, I have, a bunch of different case studies in my book, but one that's kind of interesting to me is I was approached by a mom who was really distraught over her young daughter's inability to lose weight, right? There's a lot of pressure, societal pressure. I mean, she put her on a healthy diet, vitamins, good nutritious snacks. They tried hypnotherapy. They tried exercise and counseling, and nothing she did seemed to have an impact on her health. And childhood obesity is really growing in our country, and it's usually due to the lack of nutrients in our food and making poor choices, right, with sugary snacks and stuff, and hormone-filled junk. And this poor girl was doing all the right things and still get to a healthy weight. So we did a soul intelligence session together, and we found, I don't know what your beliefs are on past lives or future lives. I believe time is spatial, and it's all happening simultaneously, but that's, again, another talk, another day, another concept. But we did this soul intelligence session together, and we found that in a past life, she had starved to death. So in this life, she always ate more than she needed because her body was still remembering that trauma. It was held in her cells, it was held in her body. And once we did the session, she was actually able to curb her appetite and lose weight. I also worked with another client, and he had pain in his right arm. And this is a guy that works out all the time, super fit, and he couldn't understand why it was hurting, right? He didn't pull anything while exercising, like he couldn't remember. So I shared with him about the right side of the body representing male energy, and the left side is female. And I said, so since it's your right arm, you're storing stress and pain and limitation that's probably coming from a male in your life. Well, I did this soul intelligence session with him, and it showed that there was an issue that was coming up for his brother. He is super close to his brother, and his brother was struggling and in the throes of a divorce. And he realized what he was doing was taking on his brother's stress and anxiety. And then once he acknowledged it, the pain subsided. And so he was able to share with his brother, about the story. Those are just a couple of examples of the power of soul intelligence, and they're just small examples. I've got lots of them in my book. The book is called Healing Through Soul Intelligence, and it will be out in October. And I'm excited that my first book signing is going to be at the Nutritional Frontiers professional training event. But I wanted to share one little excerpt from my book that I think is important in terms of kind of understanding where things get stored in the body. So I'm going to just, give me 1 second. I'm going to find what I'm looking for right here. Yeah, I thought I had it like right top of mind, and then, But basically, I talked about it earlier. When you're trying to understand what's physically going on in the body, let me just see. Everything begins in the gut, right? And I'm going to read this section to you because I just found it absolutely fascinating. And it was like when everything kind of fell into my lap and I really understood how this all works together. So this part is called holistic integration of the mind and the body and the soul, right? In functional medicine, the first place most doctors begin to treat is the gut because that's where most of our issues begin. And according to the book, Does Your Body Lie? By Louise Martin Simoes, the stomach's first job is to serve and store food. And the second is to produce the acids that attack and decompose the food. So stomach problems represent a difficulty in allowing someone to experience feelings and emotions. And secondly, a great difficulty in digesting them. So when you've got intense emotional conflict, the stomach needs more fluid to digest better. So if a person attempts to swallow their anger, they're swallowing bile and they feel the stomach acids in the form of heartburn. The biological reason is to digest all this, the stomach has to produce more gastric acid. Thus, it's directly associated with the mind. So approximately 80% of our total immune system is also located in our gut, within the mucosa tract of the GI tract to be exact. And the intestinal tract serves as this barrier to prevent harmful substances from entering the bloodstream. And if it's compromised, inflammation can occur, which leads to these chronic conditions. The gut also produces 90% of the body's serotonin. Serotonin's our happy hormone, right? It's our natural mood booster. Think about how important the stomach is, right? Our gut microbiome is also the collection of microbes in the gastrointestinal tract that helps us maintain health. And when that microbiome is out of balance, it can lead to chronic inflammation, bowel diseases, metabolic disorders. The gut is also home to 100 trillion microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, fungi, and protozoa. So it's really fascinating when you think about all of that's going on just in your own gut. Hippocrates said over 2,000 years ago, all diseases begin in the gut, dis-ease with oneself and with others. And think about it, that's where most of our challenges begin, right? Life is all about relationships, okay? And the relationship with yourself. That is exactly, energetically, what the gut is associated with. The third chakra, or energy center, is the solar plexus of your body. So the issues related to how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, how others perceive you, your level of self-confidence, how you put yourself out into the world is all associated with this center point in the body. So I just love this, like the old expression, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, is definitely not just about cooking, ladies, okay? There's way more to it at this point. But there are a lot of studies out there that talk about the importance of gut health, right? One that jumped out at me was marital distress, depression, and a leaky gut. Seriously. I know. Am I talking to you? All right. So basically, it's a pathway to inflammation. It came from the psychoneuroendocrinology. In short, researchers drew blood from a couple during a marriage counseling session, and the result was that participants with more hostile marital interactions had higher LBP. I know, now I've got another audience participant, divorcee, who is like smiling at me, than those who were less hostile, meaning they were experiencing inflammation in the gut and an increase in gut permeability or leaky gut syndrome because of all the anger that's right here. That's where we hold it. Another article from PubMed stated all disease begins in the gut, resulting in chronic inflammatory diseases. Another article in the American Journal of Psychiatry states there's evidence of gastrointestinal problems in autism and ADHD patients. And a significant number of ADHD patients also experience IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. Leaky gut syndrome also has 30 times the risk of autoimmunity. The brain-gut connection, there's so many references. So that's one of the reasons why we talk about leaky gut so much. But it causes inflammation and it damages cells in the digestive tract, basically gaps where like undigested food or pathogens and toxins leak through the gut lining into your bloodstream. And if you make unhealthy dietary and lifestyle choices, and you've got environmental toxicity, internal, external stress, and the gut flora imbalance, your gut can become permeable or leaky. So leaky gut affects the entire body, and it leads to inflammation throughout our systems. All the digestive symptoms we've mentioned, but it can also go into the brain. And that condition is called leaky brain. It includes this blood-brain barrier dysfunction and symptoms that include brain fog, neurofatigue, motor delay, clumsiness, anxiety, depression, and poor memory and personality changes. So when you think about it and you consider how everything begins with our ability to process our feelings and emotions, it's no wonder our gut is typically the key to optimizing our physical health. More specifically, what happens when you resist dealing with your feelings and emotions? It further illustrates the power of emotions and what happens when energy pools, causing inflammation or swelling of the tissue in the stomach lining. So the correlation between the physical well-being, our emotional health, and our mental state is absolutely undeniable. So what is my vision for the future of soul intelligence and healthcare? I think it extends really beyond personal healing into the realm of global healthcare. And I envision having a network of holistic healthcare practitioners across the country and eventually worldwide that use my method to help transform the way we approach health and wellness. You know, the future of medicine really is frequency. All emotions we have and experience have a frequency and can be measured in hertz. There's not one organ system in the body that's not affected by sound or music or vibration. And dis-ease can also be experienced as a form of disharmony, dysfunction, or a dissonance in the frequency. And soul intelligence works on addressing those trapped emotions, energies, and dissonant frequencies, and we shift them up and out of the physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual bodies. So for me, I really see soul intelligence extending beyond personal healing into this global healthcare, and having a network of holistic healthcare practitioners that use this method to transform the way we approach all of our health and wellness. I want holistic quantum healing centers that combine quantum physics principles with holistic healing practices and aspects connecting us all to the self. And I really think that soul intelligence is a key tool in this paradigm. So my goal is to get more people to use the method, experience the method, and so much so that I have an online school. And if you're interested in learning more about it, it is soulintelligencemethod.com. That is my website. You can go and sign up to have a session with myself, with several of my trained practitioners, or you could decide that you want to learn this method for yourself and your family. And to help your family and friends. I remember one healthcare practitioner, I did a session for her, and she said to me, I can't believe it. You only worked on me, yet my husband is behaving completely differently towards me. The issue is already shifted. And I said, well, that's because we shifted it in you, and he's responding to you in a different state of being, in a different energy. And so, you know, for me, this is really more about just a method. It's about creating a global movement, an international soul intelligence community dedicated to uplifting the consciousness of the planet for generations to come. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about soul intelligence, I encourage you to visit my website. Or you're welcome to come talk to me here if you happen to be in the Pittsburgh area. I will be here at the World of Wellness today and happy to talk to you a little bit more about the method, how you can learn it, and how you can share it with the world. So I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who is listening. I appreciate the opportunity to share my method. Thank you, everybody here. And I look forward to learning more.